Please join us in welcoming to the stage Bijan Robinson, Craig Allen, Brian Burney, Natalie Tyndall, and Quan Cosby.
Good afternoon. We starting with your slides? Cool. I want to touch on NIL before we get into the slides. For those who aren't sure, name, image, and likeness was about 2 or 3 years ago. Legislation was passed in California, and ultimately, the fast version is old schools like me, when we played in college, we did not get paid. It was very highly looked down upon. But now, as if you didn't know, college is a very big business. And so now with the Bijans and the current athletes, they now can get some money for their likeness. When I played, EA Sports had a video game, and it was always so funny because I'd play that game, and it had my height, it had my armbands. They were talking to somebody in our building, but they didn't put our name on it, so they didn't have to pay us. So that game has changed, and we want to talk about that a little bit. And certainly some of the partnerships like this one that we'll discuss have come about, and it's a pretty cool thing for us. Craig, let them know what y'all figured out.
Yeah, so we started a company with Mr. Bijan here called Bijan Mustardson, a gourmet Dijon mustard. And we brought some slides here just to kind of show you a sampling of what we've done. It's been a busy 5 months. I think we're almost 6 months old. We're still a baby. Yeah. But yeah, I'm supposed to click it. That's what Bijan looks like, wearing a mustard-based jersey. So we've done all kinds of things. You'll see a sampling here. We thought we'd show a couple of commercials that we filmed with Bijan. This first one has come out. The second one hasn't come out yet.
It's all right, man. Sometimes after a loss, you gotta reach deep down into your pocket for a bottle of Bijan Mustardson.
That's just a bottle of delicious gourmet mustard. How is that supposed to help me? Thanks, Bijan.
One team, one delicious drink.
Our tagline is, it's like a touchdown in your mouth, and we stand behind that.
We do.
This next spot, I don't believe has come out yet.
Let's see it. Oh, yeah.
Big five. Kill. Big five. Blue for the 8. Set.
Mike.
Ready. Go hit.
Touchdown.
So there you go. And then we also run all the social for it. We've done some cool stuff on social. We did this, if you don't know, when Texas plays OU in the Red River rivalry, which is hard to say. We put this metal hat on the mustard, and it became like ESPN's thing you must see from the weekend, which was cool for us. We also do things like in the game, you'll see in kind of the bottom there's a T-shirt. We made these T-shirts that I can't remember what it says, but it's very funny. We write in what touchdown he scored. So every time Bijan scored a touchdown, we gave out an autographed T-shirt. And so every time UT scored, Bijan scored, our kind of Instagram and social handles exploded. So we did cool stuff like that and kind of pushed it all out and built this brand kind of from the voice up on social. We also designed a really cool box. And in the inside, there's a letter from Bijan. It says, Dear Mouth Haver. It starts that way. And he talks about how thankful he is he bought your mustard, but he keeps getting people come to the door, and he gets interrupted, and then we run out of space on the box. So even when we got people the product, they're opening the product in the package, and they're still getting some humor there. This was a stunt we did at the Alabama game. We were underdogs in that game, so we decided to embrace it because that's what we do. We made Bijan Mustardson's underdogs. If you can't beat them, eat them. And we went out and we gave away hot dogs. So kind of a fun sampling event. For Texas fans, it was $0. For Alabama fans, they were $78. And we sold 2 of them, no joke. I still don't understand it. It happened. And then we also made a mascot suit, which was just kind of a fun thing, fun process. So we have a couple videos here of that. Another one here on a bye week. We took the mascot out. You know, there's not a lot to do on bye weeks. We're all a little bit bored, wishing for more football. Last one here, Bijan was just at the Combine, and so we did a video where he trains with the mascot as well. We took the mascot to a bunch of UT games, a bunch of events, and kind of became a tradition that people would take shots of mustard when Bijan scored, and pretty much anytime they saw this mascot suit. So that's been a fun tradition. We also been lucky enough to partner with a bunch of brands. As we started building this brand, Bijan's so polarizing, a lot of brands came and wanted to play along too. Lamborghini has been a great friend to us this season, great friend to Bijan. Amy's Ice Cream here in town, a great ice cream place, fantastic ice cream. They made a mustard-based ice cream, which was weirdly delicious. And then we also did a thing with Fletcher's Corny Dogs, which is a big thing here in Texas, and a wing sauce with Pluckers. So there's been a lot of those things going on as well. And we made a whole slew of merch. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty good. And they usually sell out pretty quickly, so that's been fun to watch. And there's the tagline again.
Well done. If you like marketing, you have to enjoy that. And real briefly, before we dive into the questions, I want to do a quick intros. My name is Quan Cosby. I played at Texas from 05 to 09. Now do business, do some consulting with Texas, and we'll continue that, Ms. Natalie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Natalie Tyndall. I'm the director of the Stan Richards School of Advertising and Public Relations at the University of Texas at Austin. And I'm also a researcher of NIL, and I also teach this to several student groups.
My name is Craig Allen. I'm founder and CCO of CALLEN Advertising.
I'm Bijan Robinson. I went to University of Texas, getting ready for the draft. And hi, how you guys doing?
And he likes mustard.
I love mustard.
Brian Burney. I'm Vice President for Athletes First Marketing, and been blessed to work with Bijan for the past 2 years.
And we'll get into the questions, but it's so wild for me because I played in 05 to 09, but I was out also with Athletes First, but it was after all of it was done. So it's amazing how it's evolving, and the opportunity is endless now, so it's pretty cool. Some work to do on the NCAA side, but I'm happy with where we're going with it. So I'll start with you, Craig, and NIL business, y'all seeing a fraction of it, all the different sponsorships, all the different collaborations. What drew you to NIL?
Personally, I'm a massive University of Texas Longhorn fan. I'm also an alumni, so I saw when this was all coming out, and I was trying to figure out how I could use my skill set and our company's skill set to basically beat everyone else if we could help it. So I saw other schools outbidding us and finding cooler things to do, and I thought maybe we could make a difference there. And then professionally, we saw, if you've seen, especially NIL has been kind of the wild, wild west. It changes every week. It's different now than when we started in a lot of ways, almost every way. And for us, it was, when we were looking at the internet, it's just tons of pictures of athletes just holding product after product and just kind of just rifling through stuff. And I think we saw an opportunity to do something more meaningful, brand building with athletes, something that could benefit them even off the field and bigger than just getting a quick paycheck.
No doubt.
Good point, really. And, CALLEN, they seeked out Bijan, which this would be a common theme. I used to talk on the radio on the sideline, and when I met Bijan, I was like, I need my son to be a little bit like you, sir. So I know why you did it, but in more business perspective and terms, why did you seek out Bijan for this partnership?
His name sounds a lot like Dijon. That's the big reason. But also, if you get to know Bijan, he's absolutely the nicest human on planet Earth. There's not any nicer person. So from immediately when we met him, I was like, thought it was too good to be true. And then everything we've done since then, when we talk and we're presenting ideas, we're just laughing. There's never been any friction. It's almost like we're just a bunch of friends hanging out, having fun together. So it was an easy decision. It helps that he's the most popular college athlete as well.
And nicest guy ever. I don't think Oklahoma feels that way.
I hope
something
not.
tells me 49 reasons to believe Oklahoma does not feel that way. But and they suck. Yeah, we all know that in Austin. But and Bijan, for you, man, of course, like I said, biggest fan. We talked about me living in Arizona and how great you've been for the university. But what has this experience been like for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been such a blessing just to be able to just experience so many different things. I mean, like, if I could tell you when I was in high school that I would be here today and doing what we're doing now, I would have been like, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that. But no, it's just like really, just like humbling just to be, part of, so many great people that supported me just throughout my whole career at Texas, on and off the field. And, even the year after my freshman season when I met, Bernie and, just being able to get to talk to him and develop a relationship with him. And, NIL was starting to become, just really big. And we were all just kind of just trying to see where it would go and see where it would take, in the direction of trying to become profitable for yourself and doing it the right way. So it was really just relationship based, that really took off for me. And obviously, God blessed me to play football on the field, but it was more like he was blessing me for off the field things as well, and to meet so many different people in the journey, that I had here. But man, it's been great. And then experiencing so many new things, like, the mustard is just like such a cool deal. I mean, not just because it's like a regular condiment, but it really does make people happy, and that's what I'm saying. Like we were talking earlier. We were like saying like like when you bring your kids into a grocery store, like they're not trying to go to the condiments. Like they want to go to the candy section, they want to go to the chip section. But now like they want to go to the condiment just to find the mustard. And I'm like, when it's something like that, and to bring joy to so many people, whether it's a kid, adult, it doesn't matter who it is. I think it's just like a really cool thing to be able to get to experience that.
And I appreciate, because we know Mahomes put ketchup on his steak. You actually put mustard on the right things,
yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
He went to Tech.
Right.
It's its own story in itself. I talked about, NIL not being around during our days, and Dr. Natalie, really from your standpoint, how has it changed? I know it and kind of see it from afar, and I'm so happy for Bijan and the other student athletes. But, I mean, how has it changed from a regulation standpoint to just really the collegiate and student athlete?
Well, it's a great thing for student athletes to be paid. That's the first thing we need to state. But what has changed is now we're asking student athletes to become brands, entrepreneurs, promoters, marketers, and publicists while they're also being students and athletes. And that is a huge expectation. It's a continual escalation of expectations for these student athletes. And that is very hard for a lot of them to balance. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen with student athletes, and then also talking about these issues, is how do you make this work? How do you put in the labor to be an influencer so you can get the brands to engage with you? How do you put in the labor when you're also trying to be the best at your sport? It's incredibly hard and incredibly difficult, but the rewards, if you can do that, are immense. And that's one of the things that a lot of students are wrestling with, is where do I stand? And I also think that this is just a challenging time for many students as well, because again, with social media, how much do you want to be exposed? How much, I'm thinking about their digital health and digital wellness and all those types of things. So there's a lot of issues surrounding this, but in the end, at the end of the day, student athletes are getting paid, which is incredibly beneficial for so many people, not just the students, but their families. There's a cascade effect that's happening, and that's really important to see.
To add on to that a little bit, even since we started Bijan, the mustard brand, not the person, we weren't allowed, there was state regulation that didn't allow for advertisements for students to happen on federally owned, state-owned property. So we kind of just did it anyways, and we'd walk onto campus and they'd politely say, hey, we off the record, we love what you do, but you can't do it here. So we'd walk 10 feet down and then do it, and then 10 feet down, and we kept doing it. And now, now it's legal. Like, you can have coaches that are sending out emails saying, can we please have your money so that we can fund these NIL deals? So it'll be a lot easier going forward. The students would smuggle our mustard into the stadium for football games, and then they'd come talk to us, and we'd be like, we didn't even do that. But now we could be in there legally, so that's a big change.
And NIL is changing pretty much every single week. No one knows what is going on.
Every single minute.
Yeah, no one knows what's going on, and if people tell you they do know what's going on, I wouldn't trust it.
Which ultimately, for me, means opportunity as well. You think about what Austin is entrepreneurially. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and y'all have done, again, I was at an NIL event yesterday at South by, and you were referenced at least, 2 or 3 times because y'all are doing it in a real cool way. And now, Brian, really getting into this world, the evolution. From your perspective, how do you do this and, kind of set up the opportunities and the student athletes for long-term success?
How do you set them up for long-term success? Yeah. Absolutely. I think, athletes of Bijan's caliber are going to make money regardless in this new climate. So whether I'm great or not, that's going to happen. I think it's up to me to make sure that we're doing the right job of aligning them with companies that fit their values, fit their brand. I think also when you're doing something like we did with Craig and David, you have to make sure that they're going to have patience. A lot of people don't understand the ebbs and flows of a student athlete as well. And some brands will, I work with NFL players, I know they have Tuesday off. So I would hear that all the time. I'm like, no, these guys, he had a math test on Tuesday. He didn't have off. So I think it's working with partners that understand that there's going to be times where we can capitalize on great moments, and then there's sometimes where it was a great idea, but it just didn't fit this week because, physical therapy, just stuff that goes in of being a high-performance athlete. And I think when you work with someone that is persistent, they don't get discouraged from maybe this week we didn't have the time to capitalize on something, but they're still persistent and they're patient with us. And I think that's a huge recipe for success with this type of stuff.
Shameless plug for UT. He is still taking math tests. So those who think you get paid and you're done, no, it's still school involved here. So and Bijan, back to you. And I often think about this one because I did not play in the social media area. Thank God I did not play during the social media era. But there's been some mistakes made. But now, to me, it almost seems like being the OG, there's a lot less because of your personal brand, because of what you're trying to do. And from your standpoint, how has it been building for those that didn't know it, I mentioned earlier, he grew up in Arizona. Austin, Texas was new to him for the most part outside of recruiting. So building your personal brand here, all the above, how's that been for you?
Yeah, so, for me, like you just said, coming from Arizona, football's a big deal out there, but when you come to Texas, it becomes football, but it becomes bigger. in a way that, you know, you have support from so many people that used to come here or that don't even come here, that they just interested in who you are as a person and who you stand for, and your beliefs of anything, really. And for me, like, when I started to really get into this space and started to really meet people and get introduced to a lot of different opportunities, you know, I didn't know that, you know, it was gonna be, you know, really fast like how it was. And, you know, we started off real quick. So we tried to jump on the opportunity really fast. You know, me, Bernie, you know, my auntie, we were all just kind of just talking in terms of, you know, okay, how is this gonna be the best for your brand? How is this gonna set you apart from everybody? And at the time, like, you know, you didn't have universities offering kids, you know, this boatload of money, because, you know, you just didn't know it at first. So, you know, obviously you have to work on the field, and you have to produce the right way in order to, you know, let brands see you for who you are and see what you do on the field and see how you can kind of capitalize for both of the success of you and that brand that's trying to seek you. But for me, it was more of like, man, just put my faith in everything, and then we'll let everything else take care of itself. So, you know, when I think the first deal that we did was Canes. And like that was like a really big deal at the time, just because like that was like the first athletic deal that the country got to see. But then from that point on, like, then we really got to, you know, talk to kind of everybody in the lane of where we want to take the direction. And I always tell kids like this NIL stuff, man. I mean, you want to do it the right way. Like you don't want to just kind of go to a place and have somebody offer you just so much stuff, and you're just like, oh yeah, I want to take it just because it's so much money. Like, I think that, you know, what Bernie's did a good job with me was, you know, everybody sees, you know, all the deals and everything that I get and everything, but I think that, you know, he's been really good with, you know, setting up things that match my personality, match who I am as a person, and then be with people like Craig, David, like that will set, you know, those lifelong relationships more than just a relationship in college, or like somebody just wants you just because you're a college football player. Like, they want you just because who you are as a person, what you bring to the table in terms of, you know, your work ethic, and then, you know, let everything else, you know, kind of take care of itself. So I think that's what's been so big in this space, you know, with all of us.
I actually want to piggyback on that, because clearly, if you're in this room, you see his humility. With this brand kind of component, was there a stage of coming out of your comfort zone to work on branding things? Again, I go back to the very first conversation. You were giving God the glory, all those things. That hadn't changed, but what did you have kind of a developmental piece of it? Because by the way, it'll last a long time, and you're going to the league, and you'll need it from that standpoint. But where's there kind of a developmental moment where, okay, I'm going to be in on this, and I need to be all in and grow this way, that way, all the above?
Yeah, I mean, just with the mustard alone, like, you know, obviously it sounded great. You know, we talked about it, and I was like, yeah, it sounds amazing. But I was like still kind of like scared. Like, I was like, okay, we're gonna start this, and you're starting it from pretty much an idea, and so you don't know how it's gonna go. You don't know where the direction is gonna go, and obviously you want it to, you know, be a success and be successful and, you know, be in so many stores. But at first, like, it's a thing where I was like thinking about it a lot. I was talking to Brian, and like just saying like, yo, like, is this gonna work? And this is before even meeting, you know, them. So when he presented it to me, I was like, all right, like, I was just kind of scared about it. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. In college, like, we're starting something, you know, that needs to be big. And there's obviously no pressure, but like, you don't want something to be on a market shelf, or you want to start a company and then it just literally fails. Like, and that would be like such an embarrassment. I mean, I guess, but like you just said, just being out of your comfort zone and just letting everything else take care of itself. And then when we started to talk about it and then meet, you know, Craig and David, like it was like, yeah, it's gonna work, because you have to have people, you know, that you can work with, that you can trust. And then even for me, I was in school, so I didn't know like the timing of everything. I still had practice, still had to do stuff like that. So, I mean, I think you have to really step out of it and not be so like secure about your brand, because you obviously want your brand to affect so many people in such the positive way and for the right way.
It was, just to piggyback on that. I mean, if you think about what we were asking Bijan to do, it was a bold move. And we told him it was going to work. We promised him it would work with every hope that we had. But, you know, at the time, it was just hold the product, smile to camera, next. And we said that we think we can do this. And he took the leap with us, which was amazing. And I think that's why it's been written up so much, is because everybody was like, you know, again, it's the wild, wild west. It's the early days. So everybody was like, oh, maybe this can work differently and better than we thought. Maybe it's not just hold the product. Maybe you could do something more. But without Brian and Bijan taking that first leap of faith, I mean, they've changed the game just by having confidence to do that.
Well, speaking of the product, you know, Craig, you've certainly done this before. Some dang good marketing perspective. This one is different. And from your standpoint, how has this venture been different than the other ones that didn't involve the Bijan or student athletes or NIL?
Yeah, every way. I feel like, I mean, one, we're not a mustard company. We're a creative lab that does, we work with brands, and we help build brands at CALLEN. So it was, you know, we first presented it, and they were like, do y'all make mustard? And we're like, no, but we will. So, you know, we've learned a lot. I mean, we had to learn about COGS, which was a thing I didn't even know existed. And now I'm very interested in COGS, cost of goods sold, by the way. If you didn't know what that meant, I did not. So, I mean, you know, for us, it was important also, you buy this once for novelty, you buy it twice because it's good. So in the beginning, there was many chances that we could have white labeled a mustard or gone a cheap route and just trying to put it out, and it's a funny joke and everybody will laugh and it'll be done. And the one thing that everybody says to us, which is kind of amazing, is, oh man, it's actually like really good. I'm like, no one believed us. But yeah, so that was important. So we had to learn how to flex some new muscles. And I think for us as a company, it's taught us how to look at businesses in a whole new way, because we now know it's hard making a mustard. And guess what? All of the mustard seeds comes from the Ukraine. Did y'all know that? We did not. And when Russia went there, we had trouble getting mustard seeds. And then we couldn't get caps because of COVID. These are things that we had not had to deal with, and it's made us better marketers because of it.
Man, that's fascinating. I did not know that. I was today years old when I found that out. Another piece of it, being a locker room guy, how does this work in the locker room, Bijan? Do you and the other guys, and there's two folds. One, what do they think about your mustard? Are they trying it as well as yourself? But two, do you talk about different deals, NIL specific? You have more than this one. So first question, what do they think about your mustard and the brand? Yep. Second question, I mean, is it an open conversation about kind of the NIL's perspective?
Yeah, so, well, first question, they love it. They love it. I did something like for the O-line to like give everybody mustard, like give them like gift bags, with the mustard gift bags, and I just kind of wanted to see what they would say, because we were all at like lunch when they got it, so they all like put it on everything, and they like loved it. Like I was like, yeah, there we go. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Confirmation, O-line like his mustard, done. It's gonna sell well.
But then the team started getting it, and I was like, okay, like this is like actually a cool thing, because if my teammates approve, like then like things won't be an issue down the line. And then on top of that, like I can just, you know, maybe one day if they ever ask me a question or if they ever want to be in that space, you know, I can, you know, have, you know, enough knowledge to give them if they ever want to start their own condiment or kind of anything really. And then like in terms of the locker room, I really don't like bringing, you know, NIL deals and stuff into the locker room, just because I don't know where guys, you know, mindset is. And I think that a lot of I don't want a lot of like jealousy or anything to fall into it. So, you know, I never want to bring that stuff in the locker room because especially when it first started to kind of really take off, you know, that's all guys were talking about. Like, that you go in the locker room, all you would hear about is, yo, what NIL deal? Y'all see this NIL deal? Like, what could I get? How could I get this? You know, where can I get this from? And so I didn't want to be the guy, because they're already seeing it on social media. Like, everything that happens, it's going to blow up on social media. They're going to see it. So I feel like they're kind of expecting you to say something when you walk in, or like, look at me, and I just wasn't trying to be that guy. You know, and I would never bring it in, because I've heard like that can divide some locker rooms. Like, that's the one thing that nowadays really separates a locker room, and that's when you got guys wanted to transfer and you know, go somewhere else big so they can try to make it big, and that's their main focus nowadays. And that's what I didn't want to happen. Like, at the same time, you still got to focus on your craft and perform on the field, and you know, get what you pretty much earn in terms of getting stuff like that. So for me, like, it was a big deal to really let it, you know, be more of a off the field thing, outside of the locker room. And you know, if the guys have questions for me and they, you know, where can I get this deal? And then I'll answer it, you know, in the most respectable way as I can, because you know, it's a big deal. Like, you know, this whole thing has changed the game. It's changed the game in all sports. And
I really wanted to touch on that, because that was one of the questions you always get. We get on the NIL perspective is, how does it work? And then football being the ultimate team sport, it gets even more intense. And in reality, not everyone in NFL have the same contract, and we do understand that. But again, as we said earlier, his character shows and his consciousness of his teammates is a big deal. But in the theme of branding student athletes, Dr. Natalie, what would you say the most important thing is, or we should, you know, discuss about creating a personal brand in general?
Well, Brian made a good point about values, and I think everything starts with values. When I've walked my student athletes and non-students through thinking about their own personal brand, it all starts with your values. And I actually have cards that I lay out on a table, and I ask them to choose what is the value that resonates with you. Pick 5, pick 10, and really dig deep about what those values mean and how you would enact those in your life. Because without those values, you really can't understand your reputation, what you want in terms of your brand alignments and things like that. So at the core of everything is your brand. What is your purpose? At the core of your brand is basically what is your purpose and what are your values. So that is incredibly important for anybody who's thinking about a personal brand. And then moving from that, it's about understanding alignment. Brands want to consider the value added. And they want to see basically, is not only is this person popular or well-liked, but what are the values that they hold, and do they match up with what we're trying to do? Is their voice consistent with our voice? So those are things that have to be taken into consideration as well. Authenticity is a word that we throw around so many times when we talk about brands and talk about identity, but authenticity is incredibly important. And people can tell if you're not being real on social media. People can tell if you're not being real in real life. So are you consistent in the way you approach things? How do you present yourself? Is that consistent across all your social media? So all of that is important, and something that students have to think about, not just, oh, I want to be popular, I want an NIL deal, and I'll stand up in front of anybody and smile. But it's really about, what's the long game here, and what are the things I want to build for the future, and what is the brand I hope to continue, not just for this year, but for multiple years?
I want to piggyback on that, because there's a couple of components. We're talking about mainly football right now. Bijan is very easily recognized, but there's another piece of it. I say it all the time, and I joke, quarterbacks, great running backs, all the above, that's one level, and then there's the different positions, but what about less recognized sports? What about female athletes? I mean, we did win a national championship in volleyball, but still, from a revenue generation standpoint, they're probably not going to get the same deals as Bijan. What has been your experience on coaching, educating other student athletes on NIL in general, but kind of their possibility of opportunities?
Well, and there was a report that came out that said that women athletes actually are getting large NIL deals and are getting different types of NIL deals because it leans into who influencers happen to be. If we look at most influencers, they're women, right? So female athletes are trending in that direction. So I think for students who are in the non-revenue generating sports, it's the same deal. Your values have to come first. You have to think about what you want to be, who you want to be, and how you're presenting yourself. But not only that, you need to lean into your fandom. And that's one of the things I love to talk about is that softball has a particular fandom, especially at UT. Volleyball has a rabid fandom. They are they love UT volleyball. They love the UT volleyball players. Lean into that. Also, to think about what are the opportunities that you can have related to your sport. If you are a rower, bathing suits, outdoor stuff, sunglasses, what are the things that you actually use in your everyday practice, and what are the opportunities there? Maybe you could partner with a small brand in Austin and get some equity as a founder, or do another type of deal with them. So thinking small and thinking big in terms of that. Also, too, for those athletes, nerd out. If you be yourself authentically, if you love Star Wars, talk about Star Wars. If you love puzzles, talk about puzzles. Whatever it is, it makes you happy, do it online because you're going to find your people. And so I think that's the thing that everybody's very afraid of is revealing some parts of themselves to show that you are big into Warhammer or you're big into whatever this thing or reality TV. Show that part of yourself because I think that makes you a human and that's part of that authenticity as well. So that's what I say to students who are in the non-revenue generating sports is look on the outside and look at the things that are unique to your particular sport, your particular lifestyle component, and go in those directions.
Can I say something off that?
For sure.
So, like, to your point, like, that's the way to do it. Like, and that's what I'm trying to, like, tell kids, like, you know, don't be afraid to, you know, go to Star Wars and go to Comic-Cons and do all that type of stuff because I think they don't want to do that because nowadays social media is all judgmental. So, you know, they're always looking at, oh, I'm about to get judged about this and I want to be a cool guy and not be different than everybody else. And, you know, one of my teammates really told me, he was like, man, I want to, like, you know, I was a big Barney fan. I was like, bro, what? Like, that's
like
actually
Purple
like
Barney?
Nice. Like, yeah. And he was like, bro, what if I did something like
great song?
Yeah, he was like, what if I did something like John Barney and like kind of bringing it back? And I was like, bro, like do it. But he was like, no, but like everybody's gonna call me a little sissy and judge me. And I'm like, bro, like who cares? I mean, like nowadays, like you should just be who you are. In such a way that who cares if anybody judges you? Like, they'll fall into place. They'll fall in line with, and they'll get your idea. But you know, I think just kids are just really scared to really venture out nowadays, just because you know they always are looking at somebody else and want to compare to somebody else instead of just being you, mostly. And
truth be told, you're going to get judged whether you do Barney or not, so you might as well be
do
you.
It. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
the judgment is temporary.
Yeah.
The partnerships are long term, and that's what I always tell guys. Don't play it too cool, because then you can miss something that you can have long past your playing days.
And your colleague on the team, actually Barney's making a comeback. Mattel is doing a whole big relaunch of Barney. That's an opportunity that he needs to be looking at.
Right. Exactly.
Tell him.
Exactly.
Like, let him know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
No
awesome,
doubt.
man. Barney on the sideline, soon to come. Deerfield, my girl TK out there. Let's look up Barney. That's funny. Brian, in thinking about the comeback of Barney and all the different things, where I grew up, all money's not good money. So as you're figuring out these deals, as you're figuring out partnerships, what would your advice be for, and almost kind of both sides of it? You know, you're kind of in a weird way brokering certain levels of the deals. What's your definition of a good partnership, and what should student athletes or folks out there kind of look out for?
Yeah, I think it's important that you and the team around you make sure that this particular brand or company cares as much about the partnership as they do a headline. You know, especially early on in NIL, you saw a lot of brands that maybe had a budget to work with a high profile player, but didn't put any budget into the production, didn't put any budget into the photo shoot. So you have these high caliber kids that are going to be going first round, and they're just sitting there with a chicken sandwich on a post, and now you're compromising the content that you've worked hard on. You're building your brand up until this point. So I think it's super important. You know, C4 is a really good example of a company that we've worked with that had a long-term plan. The same way, that was the biggest thing with me and Craig and David, is that, yeah, maybe at first I thought the mustard was a little unorthodox, but these guys had a plan. I mean, that deck had to be 40 pages that you guys had rolled out. I think that's super important. You know, is this company or is this brand? Am I meeting executives at the company? Have I ever met the CMO of the company? Or is my marketing guy just brokering the whole thing? I make my post, I get paid, and then we move on to the next thing. So I think it's super important to understand that a company that wants to build long-term and also bring you to the level of their NFL athletes as well.
First and foremost, I think, Craig, y'all are like light years ahead of most other folks, because truth be told, a lot of it is kind of seen outside looking in as just throwing money here into this collective, that collective, and all the above. Sustainability is partnerships. And so from your standpoint, your goals for future brands, you know, future deals, NIL deals, what does that look like for you guys? Because again, like I said, I think you're ahead of the curve, for one, especially with something as semi-simple as mustard, but other opportunities that it may be in the hopper.
Yeah, the plan was always to do more than just this one mustard, to help other athletes, female athletes, maybe some athletes that aren't as much in the spotlight too, and how we can help there. But as we learned through making the mustard, it's a lot of work. So we haven't acted on that yet. I don't think you've seen. I know you haven't seen the end of Bijan Mustardson. We have a lot of good plans there. And I'm not sure, I would like to think that there's a chance in the future where what I would love to see is how this brand could benefit other athletes, you know, down the road. So obviously it benefits Bijan now, but like he if you know him at all, he goes to the women's soccer games, women's volleyball games. Nobody asks him to go to those things. He's giving back as much as he can. He's on Instagram giving out backpacks to kids and all these things. He's a guy that gives back. So there's probably a way that this brand can act more like Bijan, right, in that aspect, which is how can it be a bridge for other athletes to have better opportunities than hold the chicken sandwich, right? So I think that's where we'd like to see everything go, and I think we got some interesting things coming up. So
Appreciate that. Now, thank y'all. I want to thank you in advance because we're about to read some questions from you all. So maybe y'all got instruction on how to do that. Some of y'all did because I see them already. So if it's okay with you all, and in conversation, kind of really conversational. So when I read it, any of y'all want to touch on it, let's rock and roll. So we'll go. This is a good one. Can you purchase mustard here at South by Southwest?
Indeed. We're selling it right outside. We brought some. You know, it's funny. We've had up to a 2-month wait for this mustard during the season. It was so popular at times. So we're selling it here. We're now up to date. If you buy it on bijanmustardson.com, it ships out. You don't have to wait a month to get your mustard. So, yes.
You can buy it outside, and there's some other spots too. I was talking this week, and what's funny is I thought it was in HEB already. I was like, man, it must be doing well because every time I look, it's not there. That's in the works. It's actually not there yet. So we need to get that going. We need y'all to buy more so it can get in my HEB. But another question right here is for Brian and Bijan. How did your relationship begin? I think you've touched on it a little bit, but and what have you learned from one another that's helped you further your individual careers?
Yeah, I mean, me and Brian met like a little bit before. It was more of a text first, a little bit before NIL started. Just kind of introduce each other, and I was like, man, like I didn't know anything at the time, and you know, Brian is such a really big influence in the NFL world. Like everybody knows who he is. In the marketing world, everybody knows who Brian Burney is. So it was a new space for me and him in NIL. And when we finally got to meet in person, like it was just like love from the beginning. I was like, man, I mean, I don't know if this is gonna work, but hey, we're gonna be brothers for life. I'll tell you that. And I mean, from that day on, like from us just talking at first and just creating a vision of what we want to do, not just in college, but obviously at the time we wanted to go NFL, go after the career. Just so many things that we could do with each other, and I just saw so much potential into it, and I just knew that like if we started this the right way and done it in a way of being positive and just affecting so many people, then we'll make it in such a big way. And I mean, ever since we met each other, like the rest has been history. I mean, we've done so many just awesome things, but not just because like they look cool, but because they match me. They affect so many people in a great way. And I mean, this man right here was the start of all of it. But I mean, you can even talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna get emotional. That was very nice.
I was already about to start the Barney music again. I love you. I don't
know how to follow that up, but the beauty with Bijan when we first met, I mean, as you could tell, a high character individual. So when someone has such strong values at such a young age, I think it's really on me to just make sure I align with that and help embrace it so that more people outside of Austin can get to know who he is in the best way possible. And I think that, as we got comfortable with each other, it got to a point where we started to challenge each other more too in a positive way, and Bijan has some great people around him that really care about him, and his Aunt Clarissa, and she's just been a great communication on that as well. Because like I said, I mean, these guys, college athletes, it's nothing like the NFL as far as availability and time that they could spend on these type of things. So I think it's having belief in people's resumes with David and Craig and trusting the right people. Like I said, C4, just making sure there's no reason for me to take risks with a client like Bijan. It's more just emphasizing what he's already built and what his family's built for him.
Thank you. Dr. Tyndall, and honestly, I'd like Craig to touch on this as well. There's, again, two pieces. How do you make attractive, maybe, sure, UT, big brand already. It seems, in theory, to be a little bit easier to get NIL deals. But if you're at a smaller school, I get this question all the time. It's going to take out the small schools. How do the small schools maybe find better ways or ways to capitalize on NIL? And I say schools, but also student athletes within them.
That's an interesting question because I think UT does give people an advantage, but you have to think there are several non-revenue generating sports at the school where there is not the NIL advantage, where they are working just as hard as anybody else to try and find money. So I think one thing, if you have to think about this as a student athlete or as an athlete who isn't a content creator, putting content out there, you need to think about what are the things that I'm actually doing currently that I can post instead of trying to aspire to do all these unique, wonderful, wild, trick shots and other things like that. What are the things that you're actually doing? Can you post about your everyday experiences and getting that into a routine? I think another thing for student athletes who are trying to find NIL deals at non-UT schools, one thing you think about your fan base. Who are the fans that come to those sports? Rice football has fans. Lamar soccer has fans. FAMU volleyball has fans. You go to those fans, see what they're doing, see what they're liking, see what they're interested in, engage in those things. I think the same advice I would offer to an UT athlete would be the same advice I would offer to a student athlete anywhere. Lean into the fandom, lean into the sport, pull in those things, and find your spot. Fall into your fandom. If you like Barney, which is cool, use Barney. If you are a big, again, Star Wars fan or whatever, lean into that. But I don't think you need to go out and spending thousands of dollars on cameras, photographers, other things like that. Be smart, be strategic, and think about what you're doing now and how you can use that as your platform and as your base.
Know you're a consumer too. If your fan base is in Texas, I mean, the Mustard, yeah, maybe Bijan wasn't the biggest fan of Mustard, but it made sense for his fan base. So we stayed true to his, being himself and not taking himself too seriously. But Texas, I mean, you barbecue 12 months a year. So, sorry, cookout. You don't say barbecue in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, and to add, I think that personality thing is huge, as you guys were talking about. I thought that was really great. And I speak in Natalie's class from time to time. She teaches a bunch of great NIL classes, and there was a female golfer that said, that's the number one question I get. Like, what if I'm not Bijan? What do I do? And it's a tough one to answer, you know. And it was funny when this young lady was talking. She was like, you know, we were saying, what are you into? What is your personality? And she was like, well, I did do a trick shot that blew up on Bleacher Report and got really viral and went famous. And everybody was like, do trick shots. She was like, should I? I mean, would people like that? And like, it blew up on Bleacher Report. So it's like she going back to the social media thing, she was nervous about posting stuff on her own account. She posted a trick shot. It blew up on Bleacher Report. Everybody was talking about her, and she never did another one again because she was like, I don't know if I should. We were like, do that. So finding your personality, finding things that you can contribute. And it was cool because it was her. Yeah. It wasn't her like trying to be somebody different with big lights or anything. It was, she's really freaking good at trick shots.
And that goes back to values and your purpose. And I think that's so incredibly important to start off all this stuff. For any student athlete, what are the values you have? What are the values you hold? What is your purpose? And how do you want to show that to the world? That's the most important thing.
No doubt.
Agree. This is a good one. Probably for you still, Craig, and Bijan. And the mustard thing, talk about how serendipitous it is. We know Earl Campbell has a sausage, right? What goes pretty dang good with sausage? Bijan mustard. Is there anything in the works? We got two amazing.
Come at us, Earl Campbell, people. I bet he's not making the sausage, but yeah, we would love to. I mean, I think that's, part of the way we pitched this to Bijan. And we said, we're not looking to do something for 6 months. We're trying to do something that long after you're done playing football, every UT game, all my friends, you got to eat Earl Campbell sausage. You don't want to be responsible for losing the game. So it's like, I don't know why you wouldn't have the mustard there as well. So we talked about that. So it almost makes too much sense. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet.
No, yeah, even Earl, like when I see him in person, he's like one time he was like, so that mustard. And I was like, what about it? Like, you trying to do something? Or no, but he was like just so intrigued in it. And he was like, man, he's like, you're doing such a good job in it. And, maybe one day, we can, because he has a food truck. He has a restaurant like in the airport that's like super big. And he was like, I want to put it in there. And how he kind of talks with that accent. He's like,
little East Texas swang is what we call it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, put that in that truck. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, man. I mean, that's such a cool thing for people to see that. Two players that played the same position, at this university that's just trying to make a difference in the world. We can collab on something great like that. So yeah, he's a guy, and hopefully maybe one day down the line, we can do something.
Just remember that 2 players, just regular old dudes. Bijan and Earl Campbell, regular as it gets. Actually, there's a funny question here. Somebody watched UT football because the question is, who has better hands, me or Bijan? Look at that. I was throwing a curveball.
It's not even a question.
I'm not getting in that one.
I'll tell you what. Fortunately, I'd say it's different positions, but he can do it all. And you see it on every level in the draft preparations. You saw the one-hand grabs in the middle, last few games. So he's a real deal Holyfield. I'm just old and retired. Mine are retired. So no, for sure though. But yeah, I think Bijan has some pretty dang on good hands.
Thank you.
And they're really good for spraying mustard, so you should get some of that. That's how he built up his hand strength. Clemson just recently opened up Center for NIL. Does UT, and this is actually going to be an interesting question for all of us, have other big-time schools adding their campuses for the student athletes? I'll answer that one real fast because there's a lot of components to it. Dr. Denali said it's changing every single day. So saying as simple as someone else is going to open up. I know UT has a collaboration with One Collective or something like that. When it first started, schools could not be involved in NIL. Now that's evolved, thank goodness, because it's still a lot of work in progress on what's going to move forward. So if anyone's going to open up something like that, even if they're not first, kudos to UT. Finally, they're measuring 10 times and cutting once versus measuring once and cutting 10 times, getting it wrong a million times. I think we've done that for a few years now, so we're learning from our mistakes. So no, we don't know that for sure. We'd have to get CDC to answer that. However, clearly, with it being taught in class, the amount of deals out there, the partnerships you're seeing, and quite frankly, what it does in recruiting and the evolution of that, I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future there's something out there. So great question, and kudos to Clemson. They're not in Austin, Texas, so it's a little bit easier here in Austin to do deals versus some of the other schools, especially one east of here that we don't even want to talk about that one. But no, so yeah, I think in the near future there certainly will be. And we got about 2 minutes, so any comments from the panel as we kind of end this thing, things of value you think, of course, our lovely audience would appreciate. Starting with you, Dr. Natalie.
I will say that at UT, we have multiple NIL classes across the business school. Craig and I talked about that. Also in the College of Communication, we have them. So we are preparing students for that. And I think also, too, Texas state law says that there has to be some financial education that is a component of NIL as well. So even if UT doesn't have a formal center, there are pockets of things happening, and it's just getting the students cued into those pockets. Again, more than anything else, authenticity, purpose, values. That's my big thing, and I think that's what's most important, and Bijan Mustardson is a great example of that.
Craig?
We started this to help Bijan and help UT, and I hope that as NIL keeps happening, we're focused on a way to help student athletes, not just find new ways to make money off them. Everybody's made so much money off student athletes for so many years, and there's already a trend, if you've monitored it at all, where kids are being offered $30 million, $13 million to go to a school, and then they say, oh, well, we can't find the money, and then they just move schools. And I think that's a bummer for college sports. And you hope that there is still some allegiance to a school that you're playing for that is bigger than money. And you hope that NIL can be a way that can be productive and helpful to student athletes as opposed to just finding a new way to profit off of them. So that would be my hope for NIL, is that if anything, Bijan Mustardson shows people how you can build lasting things and not just, again, find a new way to profit.
Yep. Well, they kind of just said everything. So, I just kind of wanted to say, thank you, everybody, for coming here and hearing us. Just because, we're trying to do something, special for everybody. And just you guys just supporting, and just hearing our voice, it's really cool to see that. And, hopefully, we get to take this thing to such a whole new level, and you guys get to, be on there with us, be on the ride with us. But thanks everybody for coming. Serious.
Brian?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the one thing I would say, really, so many people, when NIL kept becoming such a touch point and a headline in press, people would always want to ask about the amount of money guys were making and how big was this deal. And the biggest value for me is working with guys like Bijan early on, where they start to understand the value of business relationships and carrying themselves in a boardroom. Bijan is at a point now with media, with being a salesperson, with being a businessman, that most guys take a couple of years into their NFL career to see the value that they can have by being present in the room, as opposed to, me dialing for cash and making emails, where if you have the time, there's nothing like the impact you can make sitting right in front of them. So I think learning that at this stage before he's even in the league is such a huge advantage.
And like Bijan said, thank y'all for being here. Really, my last comment is that it's a partnerships, it's development. They are young men, so keep that in mind and take care of them. We playing in the league, we see way too often the amount of not even young men anymore, I guess, grown men who get taken advantage of. So I would say take care of them, partner with them versus seeing dollar signs, because if you do it in the right way, and you heard that a lot out of Bijan's mouth, the rest of it will come. And so, Hook 'em, of course. Thank y'all for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Listen.
Thank you.